Torah Shebechtav is just God's name. Kol Kriya B'Torah. Call out with the Torah, calling out to God. Yet, when we read it, it's full of stories about Abraham, about Moshe. If all the Torah is Torah Shebechtav, if it's just letters of God's name, then what do we do with all these stories? How come we're making sense out of it? And Abraham did this, etc. Torah is working in two ways. One is top down and one is bottom up. Top down is where beyond Seichel comes into the Seichel. It comes into the Chochmah and Bina from a level beyond that. Whereas bottom up is that the Peshat has to be worked through Chochmah and Bina in order to have it to then, you can then reach the level of Ruach HaKodesh through working through the Seichel. So the first method is the Panim of the Torah, which is where like Ruach HaKodesh comes first, and from the Ruach HaKodesh you can then move into Seichel. So the Panim of the Torah is like looking at the face. So he's looking at the face, he's seeing an entirely different story if you look at the back. If you look at the back, so you're only seeing a clouded picture and you don't get the clarity in what's going on. So when you're looking at the Panim of the Torah, from the level of Ruach HaKodesh first, so then it's just God's name. So that's all there is. But the Achraim of the Torah, when you're looking at it from a Seichel point, so then you see the stories of Abraham and that's what's going on. But there's two ways to do this. Now, in the previous generations, before the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the Judaism was run on a level of Ruach HaKodesh first and then Seichel second. So they used to have Targumon. People, when they would read the Torah, there would be a Targumon who would explain the Psukim. So we don't do this anymore. It's because in the first temple times, this is when they had it, because it was before the end of Nevuah, for the end of the time of Ruach HaKodesh. And there was, the Gemara says that it's about 1,000 years from the Jews entering into Israel and the destruction of the first time of the end of, and then 70 years, and then when Shimon Tzaddik was Nifter. It was about 1,000 years, which was the end of the time of the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, and it said that there were as many of the people who came out of, or double the amount of people that came out of Egypt, were prophets. So that's 1.2 million over a 1,000-year period. So you have thousands of Nevuahs, of Nevi'im in every generation. So in the way that the Nevuah is working is that you don't need the Seichel in order to reach a Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh comes, and then from the Ruach HaKodesh you create the Seichel. So if you look into a Pasuk, if you're calling out to God, and all the Torah is God's name, so if when you look into the Pasuk, so then there can be an infinite amount of pshatim in that pasuk, because you're not coming from a seichel, and you're coming from Ruach HaKodesh, so therefore every time once you look into it, you'll get a different pshat. So you have thousands of Nevi'im in every generation, and this is how people would do the Judaism. So you would need, and when you're reading the Torah for the tzibur, so you would have a Meturgeman who would give everybody so they're on the same pshat, because everyone who looks at it will be in a different way. Now, when you're living in this type of community, it's not going to work to have a beis din. It's not going to work to have a Messiah of halacha and a shulchan aruch, because everyone's halacha is coming from a completely different place. So if somebody has a problem, so he is a Navi himself, so he would look into the Torah and see his halacha based on his Ruach HaKodesh, because we're going into the Seichel from a higher point, from beyond Seichel, from the godliness into the Seichel. Whereas what was happening at the time of Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, which started to institute laws and beis dins, and there was this really the beginning of the Torah Shebal Peh, that everything was based on Seichel. From that Seichel you have to work through everything from the bottom up, build the house and then go live in it. So from there, so now somebody who has a greater Seichel and a beis din poskens, you can't go against that beis din unless you have a higher level of Seichel. Those concepts cannot exist before the Anshe Knesset Haggadah, before the time of the first 1,000 years. And again, we don't really have the Torah Shebaal Peh in its current form. We don't have that before the first people to start to write it. Again, as the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Anshe Knesset Haggadah, said three things. Again, the three things is the beginning of the breakdown of this Nevuah and the start of that. You're going to be relying on your Seichel now. So therefore you need lots of Talmidim. You can't rush to have din. And you have to make a geder in the Torah, because beforehand you wouldn't have a problem of making a mistake, because you're not coming to Torah from a Seichel manner. So the whole mahus of the Jew living in before these times, and you look into the Torah and you get your truth coming out of the Torah because you're on that level of Ruach HaKodesh. And because of this, you have tremendous amounts of Avodah Zarah. Because Avodah Zarah, you're just tapping into this Ruchni, you're just tapping into this spirituality, this godliness, this Ruach HaKodesh in a Tuma manner. So it's not Ruach HaKodesh, it would be Ruach HaTuma. But everything's there and everybody's involved in it. So because of that, this type of idea of the Messiah of the Torah Shebaal Peh, which we have, it doesn't really have a place to exist. So in the Ten Commandments, if you look at that, they get the whole Kol Torah Kula you can get from the Aleph. If you look at the Aleph, it's just an Aleph, and not everything is there. But the tablets only have Panim. So if you look at the Aleph, it's only from the bottom up, in which is only an Aleph there. But from the top down, everything is there. Because on the face, if you look at somebody's face, you get far more information than if you read a story about his face. So looking at the Luchos, is the level of Panim there for Kol Torah Kul is there. Now Torah Shebechtav has both Panim and Achraim, so it's both calling to God, and it's full of God's names, and it's also stories about Moshe and Abraham. And Torah Shebaal Peh is all Achraim. It's all the back. You have to work through the Seichel. So therefore, this idea of kashas and shailas, and working through all the sugyas, so that's all in our Torah Shebaal Peh. So we have three also subsections within the Torah Shebaal Peh. That the Mishnah is from a level of Ruach. It reaches Ruach HaKodesh. Brises, some do and some don't. And the Gemara, it's all the level of Seichel. So the time of Gedaliah, and the fall of Jerusalem, and there were some people left in Jerusalem, and there was a decision as to whether we're going to side with Egypt or with Bavel. And he was told by the Novi to side with Bavel, but his people with him decided to side with Egypt, and they killed him and ran away. So this caused the final exile from Jerusalem, and if they sided with him and they stayed, then there would always be a remnant of the Jews in Jerusalem, and there would always be this Ruach HaKodesh level continuing in Israel. But because of the death of Gedaliah and the disbursement, that was really the end of the time of Ruach HaKodesh. So we fast on the day that he was killed, because that's really representing the movement from the top-down approach of Judaism to the bottom-up approach of Judaism. So the Anshe Knesset Haggadah were a very powerful unit, and they were able to enact things, and because they were all the greatest people who were there, and it was a self-destructing unity, because anyone who died, so the numbers would go down. The Knesset in Israel has 120 people in it. To Lahavdil compare themselves to the Anshe Knesset Haggadah had 120. So the 120 is, if someone dies, it goes to 119. You don't replace the person. And the reasons for that is that because the core of what it is this entity had tremendous amounts of power, which is fine when the people who are wielding the power are worthy of that. But if you continue over time with an entity with tremendous amounts of power, and it will be full of people who are not worthy to wield that power, and they will oppress the people. So it had to be a self-destructing entity. So while they were, Anshe Knesset Haggadah were pushing people into this new way of Seichel, there was nobody had uprising. So we see in Pirkei Avos, Antigonus was after Shimon HaTzadik, and Antigonus has this story of where the B'taisim and the Tzedukim came away from him, because really there was a huge, what the ancient Constantinople did was really a huge revolution in Judaism, and there were many sects that didn't want to go down this path. They were not interested in this path, so there was this breakaway that they just want to go back to Ruach HaKodesh. So you'll see that in the Gemara they're always having these machlokasim in how to darshan the pasuk. And this is, well, I do it this way. This is how I darshan the pasukim, because they're going back into their time of, well, we don't believe in this reform. You're Reform Judaism, and we're keeping it real, where we just use our Ruach HaKodesh and we see what we want to see in there. And the problem is that it's not top down. It's that they're just making this stuff up, because then the nevuah was going down. And again, the other religion, the Christianity and things like that are coming out of this, is coming from that point, which is kind of like this kind of mistaken Ruach HaKodesh. And that really we need to be relying on Seichel, because we have completely changed the way that we interact with Torah. But there's always those ones that's changed, that they want to keep it differently. So you can see through Christianity and things like that, of what comes out when you go against these ideas that were put down. Now, a lot of time in life, you only see the Acharayim. You see what something happened. Really, that's not the story. Again, Abraham got a bris. Well, in the Panim level, you're crying out to Hashem. But in the Echraim, he got a bris. So the thing that you're seeing, the story in which you can see, has a very poor reflection of what's actually going on. Because what's actually going on is the Panim. But what you're seeing is the Echraim. So you can get all upset over the Echraim, and I shouldn't have done this, or should have done that, or this is good news, or that's bad news. But that's only from the perspective that you have, which is a very poor perspective, which is just you see the back of things. But if you see the front, you have an entirely different perspective, and want to not change things and just be happy with how it is. So we have in the first paragraph of the Shema, the Ahavta, and it says that you will then teach this to your children, Avartim Bam, which is the mitzvahs of Limud Torah. And then it says that you will put up you will wear tefillin. In the second paragraph, first it goes through the reward and punishment, and then it says that put on tefillin, and then v'dibarti bam, and then learn Torah. So the first paragraph is talking about a Torah from the top down, where what is the Torah in which you're learning? It's the Ahavta. It's coming from the Ahavta v'dibarti bam. You will teach the Torah of Ahava, which is the Torah of Panim. The second paragraph is referring to the Torah of Acharayim. Just learning about mitzvahs, just learning about Seichel. So therefore first you put on the tefillin, and then you learn about it, because the learning is going on the tefillin. It's not going on the Panim. So it's all about mitzvahs, and that's the Torah which we have today, which is Seichel, 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 Seichel. So our societies like to promote all the Seichel and promote people. You're a big rabbi if you can work through all the Seichel, but really all they're doing is working through the Acharayim of Torah and missing the Iker, which is upon him.